I am very excited to have this very special guest on the Venture Love podcast. For our listeners, you'll definitely want to check Barbara Bassi out. Barbara is the founder of OnlineItalianClasses.com and the creator of Italian Stories in Italian podcast. She's originally from Piacenza, I think I'm saying that right, Italy, where she was born and raised and is now living in London with her beautiful family. I'm so happy to have you on the show. So welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So first off, I do want to share what a beautiful person Barbara is. I know we've only met a handful of times, but every time I chat with you and I meet with you, and I've traveled, to Italy over the years, you're just such a sweet, caring, good person. So very easy to talk to. So I asked you to be on the podcast because I thought it would be really wonderful to get to know more about you, your history, and share about your business and how you got started. So to begin, do you mind sharing what life was like growing up in Piacenza, Italy? This is just me being curious, of course. And I thought, yeah, if you could just paint a little bit of a picture of what that experience was like for you, that would be great.
Okay, sure. Well, I grew up in this small town in Italy called Piacenza. You said it very right, and which is not far from Milan. I need to make a quick premise here. Italy is mostly made of small towns. I've checked some recent statistics and I found out that 70% of Italian towns called comuni have less than 5,000 inhabitants per town. Piacenza has around 100,000 inhabitants, which is less than the ones of the London district, where I'm currently living, which is kind of fun for me. And this peculiarity of Italy implies that everyone and everything is very close, and there's such a beauty around. Small Italian towns are mostly very picturesque, and it's often very easy to have a change of scenery whenever you want. In Piacenza, for example, you can easily go either to the seaside or to the mountains in less than 2 hours driving. This closeness is considered like a value for Italians. People tend to choose a job that is close to them, close to their home, close to their family, close to their friends. It's very common for adults to show with the proudness to be still in touch with the same friends that they made in primary school. I personally have a group of close friends like that.
Mhm.
And I think this trend is very special, but also has some negative consequences, especially when it comes to work. Many times people don't allow themselves to explore other jobs and prefer to stick with the ones offered by the territory where they grew up.
Mhm.
This means that they can choose a path not because it's what they love to do, but because it's the most convenient.
Mm. Yeah. I can see that definitely. I know with some friendships I've made over the years of knowing that um, it's hard to leave the place where you were born and raised. It's hard to leave your family. I mean, my husband Vito, he left Monopoly, which is a beautiful place in southern Italy, and now lives here, which is so far from home. But I do agree with that statement you said that sometimes um, it's interesting. You leave home, but sometimes it's a risk you're taking to do something that you are passionate about and that you love. So thank you for sharing that. And so in terms of your business and living in Italy and now living in London, when you were little, did you ever think that you would start this kind of a business, that you would be a business owner and a business owner of a language learning company?
That's an interesting question. I wish I was the kind of child that knows what he or she wants to become. I was not like that. For me, I it was really important for me to experience something before dreaming about something. I mean, that I think that before being able to dream about the ideal job, you need to know that those kind of jobs exist. So, for example, when I was a child, I remember that I wanted to be a teacher because I went to school and I saw teachers. And this attitude never abandoned me. For example, when I was 18, and because in Italy we take the driving license at
Mhm.
18 years old. And when I was 18 and I was taking driving lessons, I thought that being a driving teacher would have been super cool. Yes. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that um, yeah, before being able to dream about an ideal job, you have to acknowledge that those jobs exist. So what I did was try different types of jobs as an employee that, to be honest, were not very satisfying. I was never fully happy with what I was doing. Most of the time, I liked my coworkers, but I didn't really like the job. By then I had the chance to move abroad, to have an experience abroad. I went to Spain, specifically to Barcelona, which is a very creative city. And there I met people that for a living they just wrote. So their job was writing and they could survive with that. And it was amazing for me because writing had always been what I really wanted to do. It was my passion. So I started to figure out how to do like them. But I knew that being um, a writer, a novel writer, it's not for everybody. So what I started to do was writing for companies, for example, texts for advertising or job articles, things like that. And I carried on for some years until I started to feel lonely, because writing is lovely, but it's a very solitary job. And also, I have to say that it's a very low paid job. So I looked to give a twist to my career. At that time, I was back to Italy, and I started to. I was a freelancer in Italy, and yeah, so I wanted to do a job that was that allowed me to relate more with people, but at the same time I didn't want to divert too much from the Italian language. I forgot to say that I used to write in Italian. Of course, I couldn't be an English copywriter yet, and probably never. But anyway, that's how I ended up studying to become a teacher of Italian as a foreign language. And when I got the certification, I started to collect my first experiences in that field. I spent some months abroad where I was a voluntary teacher, and then I found a paid collaboration with an online school. That experience was life changing for me, because for the first time I realized how many people are interested in the Italian language. And I got to know so many interesting people. Um, some of them, they just wanted to learn Italian for fun, others for because they needed it for their job, or I don't know. I could tell many stories. For example, this parent that was actually Italian, uh, but he moved in Germany many years ago, and when he became a father, he didn't feel confident enough to teach Italian to his daughter, and so he needed the support. He wanted the support of an Italian teacher. And yeah, so sorry, I'm I'm like taking it very from a long point of view, far point of view. Anyway, I found myself in a phase of my life where I was happy with my what I was doing, because I was writing, and at the same time I was delivering classes to these wonderful people that I could know through this school. But these jobs are both very time consuming. And being a freelancer means that if you don't produce work, for example, you don't deliver an article or you don't deliver a class, nobody pays you. This means that you can't get sick, that it's better that you don't take many days off, and that you can't get pregnant. But in the end, I got pregnant. And unfortunately, I found myself feeling very sick from the very beginning. I had to stop all my collaborations overnight, and I had to find a way to go through that new, I would say, unexpected phase of my life. Luckily, I had already started a project in my free time. I was building my own online school of Italian as a foreign language, just for practicing my skills in digital marketing. And I ended up creating a small team of teachers I could rely on while I was doing my other jobs. So basically, I have to thank my baby if now my business has its current shape, because what I did in the end was giving up everything else apart from my personal project, because I could go at my own pace with it.
I love that. I love the story of you sharing that. One of the things that I really love that you said was that when sometimes we have to look at someone who's done something to know that it's possible is something you said early on, and that stuck with me, because I know, especially as women, sometimes I think it's a challenge to think that this is possible or that's possible, but I love that your life has kind of led you into this beautiful work, and your baby was a blessing. And I think it's so funny because the more funny and beautiful, because sometimes the biggest, scariest things for us in our life end up being really beautiful projects. And I think that our intuition leads us to do these things. So like, for example, when I was pregnant, I knew baby's coming, baby's coming soon, but I wanted to start a podcast. And I was thinking like, how am I going to start a podcast and I'm pregnant and I'm not feeling great? And I know it doesn't feel great. Sometimes you're nauseous and all the things you get. But looking back, I'm so grateful I started the podcast, because I wouldn't have this opportunity to connect with like beautiful people like you, so, and same for you and your business. Yeah. And I resonate also with what you said about Italy being just a beautiful, Italian being such a beautiful language. Before I met my husband, who is Italian, I traveled to Spain, Italy, France. I love Barcelona, but I really fell in love with Italy. I fell in love with the food and the language and how they talk with their hands, because that's what they
I
do.
know I'm doing that.
Yeah, they talk with their hands and you just fall in love with it. And I remember coming back home and wanting to retain some of the language and wanting to learn. And so I signed up for some classes and I learned my very, very basic words and phrases, but it's a continual evolvement. So for those listening who want to learn more, learn from your services, how can people find you, and how can they learn from you, and what can you offer to people who are interested in learning the Italian language?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you said something very important, which is motivation. Uh, Very important for telling what is my school about, because actually it's all about motivation. So yeah, you said that you came back and you really you fall in love with the Italian language. And so that was like the starting point of you learning Italian. And basically, my company offers one-to-one online Italian classes with native teachers, which I know it's nothing special, because there are really many, many competitors out there. But I think that what makes us special is understanding that motivation is really the key for a last learning experience. We follow an approach that is called CLIL, which is Content and Language Integrated Learning. Basically, we believe that for learning a language, the language is not necessarily the purpose of the learning effort, because languages are means of communication. You use languages to express yourself, to acknowledge something, for example, when you read a book or when you listen to a podcast or you watch a movie. It's like when you move to another country, for example, you can tell me I can understand it what happened to you, and you have to face a life in a foreign language. For example, if you want to do the shopping, a very simple thing, or if you want to understand how the health system works, how to make an application for your kids' new school, and so on. So basically, what we try to do, I mean, my teachers and I, we try to replicate those authentic situations by encouraging our students to speak as much Italian as they can. Of course, it depends on their level, with real people, with real teachers.
Mhm.
Also, our teachers know that there is no magic wand for learning a foreign language overnight, and that it's a never-ending job, as you said, because languages are not static. They are fluid. They evolve with the society. In all the languages, every year there are new words that are included in the dictionaries and others that are removed because they are considered obsolete. And back to your question, if you are interested in learning Italian, you can start with a trial class on my website, which unfortunately it's not free anymore because we had too many not showings up, but it's only £7. And if you like the experience, we can offer different packs of classes. You can choose between 5, 10, or 20 classes, and the unit price drops with a bigger quantity. Classes can be 30, 45, or 60 minutes long, and these classes are online and live on Google Meet and are not standardized. Every teacher customizes the classes according to each student's needs. I said pounds, but it's possible also to change the currency. So you can pay with US dollars or euros or whatever you prefer. And if you become a student, that is, if you buy at least a pack of classes, you have some more benefits included. For example, you receive assignments, if you want, that are personally checked by our teachers, and you can join one of the projects that we organize every year. One of them, which is my favorite, of course, it's a writing contest. And last thing I want to say is about our teachers. They live in different parts of Italy and also abroad, but they are all native speakers. I really like the fact that they have different passions and also different backgrounds. In fact, not all of them do this only job. Some of them have other jobs, and they like to tell about their lives, their jobs during the classes. So they take all of their lives in the classes, and our students are always very interested in knowing how is their daily life, what they do. So it's very helpful for our students because they can better picture how life in Italy is and how the Italian culture is. And also our teachers, they bring their passions in the group courses that they organize during the year, which are always about a certain topic, for example, arts, cinema, literature, and so on.
I love that. I especially love that the teachers are native from Italy. They were born and raised. They know the language, the food, the people, the culture, and they express that. So I think that that's like a really beautiful and unique offering that your company, your services offer. And I know you also have a podcast. So do you mind sharing the name of the podcast and a little bit about that too?
Sure. Yes, I have this podcast, which is the way I found my students. I created my audience, and I'm very. It's very gratifying for me. It's called Italian Stories in Italian, and it allows me to write and to record stories about what I really love. All the stories are in Italian, but it's a slow Italian. And there is also a transcription of each episode that is available for free on my website, on my blog, with also a small vocabulary for the most difficult words. And yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And then I always like to wrap up my interviews by asking, what does it mean to venture a life that you love?
Yes, for me, venture a life that you love, it means not to be driven by other people's expectation. For example, family pressure, society pressure, sometimes, many times, I would say. And it means that you can make a plan of what you really want to do. So you set your goals, but also you set some steps in the middle. And when you look back and you connect the dots, you feel happy about what you did.
I love that. That's beautiful. You said that so beautifully. I really appreciate you taking the time to share more about yourself and your business. And I will absolutely link your website, your podcast, and the offerings that you mentioned in the show notes. So anyone and everyone who's listening, who's interested, can connect with you. And thank you so, so much for today. Thank you for being here. And I just appreciate you and I love what you're doing. And I think it takes a very strong, beautiful, kind, and caring person to do what they love. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your patience, for having me, and for allowing me to share my experience to your audience. And yeah, thanks so much, Violet.
You're welcome.